Hello students. In today's video, I am going to show you what needs to be done when you import in a data set into a Panda or Jupyter notebook, and what are the steps that are involved in basically overlooking the data, overviewing it, carrying out some hygiene checks, and making sure things are consistent. All right, so let's just jump over to the Jupyter notebook. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to import in the Bollywood_missing data set. Now notice over here that I have also got something in comma. I have got an encoding is equal to CP something term over here also. So now let me just remove this term and let's see what happens. And as you can see, there is an error running it. Now this kind of errors do happen, especially when you upload data from which you have downloaded from the internet. So therefore it is important that you are able to troubleshoot it. Now the exact error, do not bother going through what all happens over here. The final error is basically given at the bottom of the error code. Now the best protocol for this, now this says Unicode error, decode error, UTF-8 and something. Now this is all fairly complex. So the next thing that you need to do is copy paste this and then hop over to Google. All right. And once you hop over to Google, let's go here. Oh dear. Yeah. And paste it. You will get some kind of a resolution, all right, which is suggested for you. And the best place for finding these resolutions is typically Stack Exchange. So just go on over to Stack Exchange. And as you can see over here, for example, it is suggesting this as and where you see the green tick mark suggests that this is a good resolution for this problem. So just copy this and go back to your original file. And let's go back over there, put a comma, and then just copy paste this in. Just be careful about inverted commas, etc. and then run it. And as you can see, it runs. So this is basically the way you would handle an error code. I just wanted to show you this because it can be very frustrating when you get stuck with an error code at the get-go when you've just literally started loading in the data. The next thing that you do when you get a file is to do df.head. By this method, you get to see the first 10 or 5 rows in a data set. All right. If you want to see more, for example, I want to see 20, you just type in the number inside the brackets and I will get to see the first 20 rows. Okay. After this, After this, the next step would be to just get an understanding, because as you can see over here, this is a fairly complex data set. It seems to have a lot of different types of variables. We have movie name, release date, whether it was in a festival or a non-festival kind of period or a long weekend, LW's long weekend, the genre of the movie, thriller, suspense, horror, romance, etc., movie content, whether it was prequel, sequel, masala, etc., director category, lead actor category, item song number, yes, no, production category, movie director category, movie box office collection, success failure, budget, YouTube views, likes, dislikes, etc. Now, again, just notice over here that some of these are text-based columns, which are basically categorized as object. Some of these are numeric columns, for example, box office collections. And some of these are floats, for example, YouTube views. So the next thing that you can do is find out variable descriptions in greater detail using the command df.info. All right, df.info, you get a list of all the commands, the column variables. You also get the non-null count in each of these, and you get the data type with. And as you can see, movie name, all the text-based columns are described as objects in Pandas. All right. Then the numeric columns are either categorized as integer 64 or float 64. One watch out which is there is that certain columns which we would like to be numeric may not have the correct data type. Now in this particular data set, which is essentially clean, this may not be a problem. But when you have a data set which comes in from the internet sources, you very often get a lot of numeric data actually being categorized as objects. So there is a need to check through the data types very carefully and see that they are aligned to the way you would like to use them in analysis. Now, for example, over here we have an item song yes, no. However, it is categorized as an integer variable. Now we know that this is actually a 0-1 variable and it's a categorical variable. Categorical variables are also handled as objects. So ideally we should convert this into an object. Similarly, another one which is an object is success failure. Now this is kind of an overall outcome variable for the movie, 0-1 movie. And this again is an integer. So this will give us a problem. We need to convert this also to an object. All right, so typically the next step, which we will do a little later. Now the next step that we are going to do is look at missing values. Now, for most algorithms, data science and AI algorithms, you do need to have all the columns to be populated with something. Missing values typically happen when there is nothing there. There are various protocols for handling them. However, as a first cut, I would just suggest if there aren't too many or if the missing values account for about 1 to 2% of your data set, just go ahead and drop them. So that would be the easiest thing to do. Now, how do you check missing values? The code that we write over here is we take our data frame object df. Dot is null is the method that we apply to it, which basically tells you that identify any missing values across rows. And dot sum says that please sum them up across the columns. All right. When you run this, what you get is the list of columns and the number of missing values in each column. Now, for example, over here, we will find that there are very few missing values because it's obviously a clean data set. But Profit has 1, YouTube views have 1, and YouTube dislikes have 1. And unfortunately, this unnamed column has got 149. Now, that means that this is a problem. Now, this is again another thing which I want to flag to you, that very often when we import in data, we find that there are unnamed columns or extra columns which also get read in, and they typically have no sort of numeric data attached to them. So it's important to flag these rows and to actually drop them. So the first thing that we would do then is we would drop this unnamed column. All right. The syntax over here is df. We are df, which is the data frame object, dot drop, which is the method for dropping. We pass in the exact name, that the way it is exactly, including spaces or non-spaces or symbols or whatever, in inverted commas, comma, and then we also indicate axis is equal to 1. That is to say, look at the columns. This is then reassigned to the data frame df. All right, this run. Oh dear, what has happened here? Okay, it has already been dropped, unfortunately. Let me just go back and reload the data. That should do it. Okay. Then, do we have the unnamed column? Yes, we do. And then let's just go here. Let's run. And then you do df.head, and you see that that unnamed column has got dropped. Now, once that column is dropped, what you can then do is, since we noticed that there were very few missing values, we actually will just go ahead and drop them. To drop them, you do df.drop_na method, which is different from the .drop method, which is for dropping columns. This is for dropping your missing values. So you access is equal to 0 and how is equal to any. You drop them, assign it to a new data frame called df1. Why do we assign it? Because when you make permanent changes like dropping missing values, you may want to go back to the original data set. If you just keep overwriting it, then you will have to actually go back and reload everything right from the start. So it's a good practice. Another thing which we can do is check for duplicated values. df1.duplicated.sum. Now, in this particular instance, we find that there are none. So we go ahead and move on further. The next thing, so I'll stop over here with this data cleaning, and we will get in the next part into checking the type and structure of the variables.